Hey everyone, and welcome back to the Slumber Lab. Tonight, we're diving into one of the most mind-bending questions that has haunted philosophers, physicists, and anyone who's ever stared at the ceiling at 3 a.m. wondering about existence itself. How did nothing exist before the Big Bang? And what does nothing even mean when we're talking about the origin of everything? So before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what we explore here. And let me know in the comments where you're tuning in from and what time it is for you. It's always fascinating to see who's joining us from around the world as we unpack these cosmic mysteries together. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey through the deepest questions about reality itself. Picture this: you're sitting in complete darkness. No light, no sound, no air, no space, no time, not even you. That's what most people imagine when they think about what existed before the Big Bang. Pure, absolute nothingness. But here's where it gets weird. The moment you try to imagine nothing, you're already imagining something. Your mind creates a dark void, an empty space, but that's still something. True nothingness isn't dark because darkness requires space. It's not silent because silence requires time. It's not empty because emptiness requires a container. So, what are we really talking about when physicists discuss the state before the Big Bang? Are we talking about a void, a different kind of reality? Or are we asking the wrong question entirely? Tonight, we're going to explore 3 mind-bending possibilities that modern science offers us. Each one will challenge everything you think you know about existence, time, and the very nature of reality. But first, let me tell you why this question matters more than you might think. This isn't just abstract philosophy or cosmic curiosity. Understanding what came before the Big Bang touches on fundamental questions about consciousness, free will, and whether our universe is unique or just one bubble in an infinite multiverse. The answer shapes how we see ourselves and our place in existence. The first possibility is what I call the pure void theory. This is probably closest to what you imagined when you clicked on this video. The idea that before the Big Bang, there was literally nothing. No matter, no energy, no space, no time, not even the laws of physics, just pure, absolute nothingness. But here's where it gets immediately problematic. If there was truly nothing, how did something emerge from it? This isn't just a casual question. It's what philosophers call the fundamental question of existence. Why is there something rather than nothing? And if nothing was the original state, what could possibly cause something to emerge from it? Some physicists have proposed that nothingness itself might be unstable. Lawrence Krauss, in his book A Universe from Nothing, argues that even empty space, what we might call a vacuum, is actually buzzing with activity. Virtual particles pop in and out of existence constantly. The vacuum isn't empty, it's full of potential energy, quantum fields, and the fundamental forces of nature. But this raises another question. If the vacuum isn't truly nothing, then what is? Are we chasing an impossible concept? Maybe true nothingness has never existed and never could exist. Maybe the very idea of absolute nothing is like asking what's north of the North Pole. It's a question that seems to make sense but actually doesn't. Think about it this way. Even if you removed all matter and energy from the universe, you'd still have the laws of physics, the mathematical relationships that govern reality, the potential for quantum fields to exist. The framework of space-time itself. Are these things something or nothing? If they're something, then we've never actually had nothing. If they're nothing, then how do we explain their apparent existence and power to create matter and energy? This leads us to a fascinating paradox. The only way to have true nothingness would be to have no laws of physics, no mathematical relationships, no potential for existence. But without any laws or principles, there would be no rule preventing something from emerging from nothing. In other words, if nothing existed, there would be nothing to stop something from existing. Some philosophers argue that this paradox proves nothingness is impossible. They suggest that existence is the default state and nothingness is the anomaly that requires explanation. But this flips our intuition completely. Instead of asking why there's something rather than nothing, maybe we should be asking why we expect nothing to be the natural state. The second possibility is even stranger. What if time itself began with the Big Bang? This is actually what most modern physicists believe. According to Einstein's theory of relativity, time and space are woven together into space-time. When the Big Bang occurred, it didn't just create matter and energy, it created the very fabric of space-time itself. But this creates a linguistic and conceptual problem. If time began with the Big Bang, then there was no before the Big Bang. The word before requires time to have meaning. It's like asking what's south of the South Pole. The question appears to make sense, but it's actually meaningless within the framework of our reality. Stephen Hawking used to illustrate this with an analogy. Imagine the surface of the Earth as a two-dimensional representation of time. The North Pole represents the Big Bang. As you move south from the North Pole, you're moving forward in time. But if you ask what's north of the North Pole, there's no answer. Not because we don't know, but because the question doesn't make sense within the geometry of a sphere. Similarly, if time began with the Big Bang, asking what happened before it is like asking what's north of the North Pole. The question feels meaningful to us because we experience time as linear, with a past, present, and future. But according to this theory, time isn't a river flowing from past to future. It's more like the surface of a sphere, with the Big Bang as a single point where time begins. This doesn't mean there was nothing before the Big Bang. It means the concept of before doesn't apply. It's not that there was a void waiting around for 13.8 billion years before the Big Bang happened. There was no waiting, no duration, no temporal framework at all. But this raises its own puzzles. If time began with the Big Bang, what caused the Big Bang? Causation requires time. First one thing happens, then another. But if time began with the Big Bang, there was no first moment before it. The Big Bang wasn't an event in time. It was the beginning of time itself. Some physicists have proposed that the Big Bang was a quantum event emerging from quantum fluctuations that exist outside of time. But this requires us to imagine a realm of existence where cause and effect work differently than anything we experience. It's like trying to describe color to someone who's never seen. We're pushing the boundaries of human language and comprehension. The third possibility is perhaps the most mind-bending of all. What if our universe is just one of an infinite number of universes? What if the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of everything, but just the beginning of our local reality. This is the multiverse theory, and it suggests that what we call nothing might actually be a seething ocean of infinite possibility. Imagine reality as an infinite ocean. Our universe is like a bubble that formed in this ocean 13.8 billion years ago. But there are countless other bubbles, each with their own Big Bang, their own laws of physics, their own evolution. Some bubbles might have universes where gravity works differently. Others might have different numbers of dimensions. Some might be filled with matter we can't even imagine. In this model, the nothing before our Big Bang wasn't empty void. It was the infinite potential of the multiverse, a quantum foam of possibility where universes bubble into existence constantly. Our Big Bang was just one of these bubbling events, no more special than a raindrop forming in a cloud. But this raises questions that make your head spin. If there are infinite universes, then every possible universe exists. There's a universe where you made every decision differently. There's a universe where the laws of physics are just slightly different, and stars never formed. There's a universe where this video doesn't exist, and another where it's the most important video ever made. The multiverse theory solves some problems but creates others. It explains how something could come from nothing. The nothing wasn't empty, it was pregnant with infinite possibility. But it also suggests that our universe, our lives, our choices might be just one arbitrary outcome among infinite others. Some physicists find this comforting. If every possible universe exists, then in some sense nothing is ever truly lost. Every possibility is realized somewhere, but others find it disturbing. If everything that can happen does happen, then what makes anything special? What gives our choices meaning if every possible choice is made in some universe? The multiverse theory also raises questions about what we mean by existence. If there are infinite universes, do they all exist in the same way? Are they all equally real, or is there some hierarchy of reality? Maybe our universe is just a simulation running in a more fundamental reality. Maybe we're characters in a cosmic computer program, and the nothing before our Big Bang was just the moment the program started running. This might sound like science fiction, but some serious physicists take it seriously. If the multiverse contains every possible universe, then it must contain universes that are simulations. And if simulated universes vastly outnumber real ones, then statistically, we're more likely to be in a simulation than in a base reality. But here's where it gets really weird. If we're in a simulation, what does that mean for the question of what existed before the Big Bang? Maybe the Big Bang was just the moment the simulation started. Maybe the programmers who created our universe exist in a reality with completely different rules. Maybe their universe never had a Big Bang at all. Or maybe the simulation is running on a computer that exists in another simulated universe. Maybe it's simulations all the way down with no base reality at all. This is starting to sound like philosophical quicksand, but it's where the logic of the multiverse theory can lead us. Each of these three possibilities, the pure void theory, the beginning of time theory, and the multiverse theory, offers a different answer to what existed before the Big Bang. But they all share something in common. They all suggest that our intuitive understanding of existence, time, and causation might be fundamentally wrong. We evolved to survive in a world where time flows from past to future, where things have causes, where something can't come from nothing. These intuitions served our ancestors well when they were hunting mammoths and gathering berries. But when we try to apply them to the origin of the universe, they might be leading us astray. Maybe the question, what existed before the Big Bang, is like asking, what does the number 7 smell like? It feels like it should have an answer, but it's actually a category error. We're applying concepts that work in our everyday experience to a realm where they might not apply. But that doesn't mean we should stop asking the question. Sometimes the most important discoveries come from pushing our concepts to their breaking point. When we ask what existed before the Big Bang, we're not just asking about cosmology, we're asking about the nature of existence itself. And that brings us to something even more mysterious. If we can't fully understand what existed before the Big Bang, what does that tell us about the nature of consciousness, about the mind that's trying to understand its own origin? We are arrangements of matter and energy that emerged from whatever existed before the Big Bang. We are the universe becoming aware of itself. But consciousness itself seems to pose the same paradox as the Big Bang. How does subjective experience emerge from objective matter? How does the feeling of being you arise from the firing of neurons? We can map every neuron in the brain, but we still can't explain why there's something it's like to be conscious. Maybe consciousness and the Big Bang are related mysteries. Maybe the same principles that govern how something emerges from nothing also govern how subjective experience emerges from objective matter. Maybe the universe had to become conscious in order to ask questions about its own origin. This is getting into deep philosophical territory, but it's where the question of what existed before the Big Bang ultimately leads us. It's not just about cosmology, it's about the nature of reality itself. It's about whether the universe is fundamentally material or fundamentally mental. It's about whether existence is an accident or an inevitability. As we'll explore in the next part of this series, modern physics has revealed something even stranger about the nature of nothing. Quantum mechanics suggests that even empty space is never truly empty. The vacuum is bubbling with virtual particles, quantum fields, and zero-point energy. The nothing that might have existed before the Big Bang turns out to be the most active nothing imaginable. But for now, let's sit with these three possibilities. The pure void theory suggests that somehow, impossibly, something emerged from nothing. The beginning of time theory suggests that the question itself is meaningless because time began with the Big Bang. The multiverse theory suggests that nothing never existed because reality is an infinite ocean of possibility. Each theory challenges our basic assumptions about existence, time, and causation. Each one suggests that reality is far stranger than our everyday experience suggests, and each one leaves us with more questions than answers. That's the beauty and frustration of exploring these cosmic mysteries. Every answer opens up new questions. Every solution creates new puzzles. We're like explorers mapping the coastline of an infinite continent, never knowing what strange new territories we'll discover around the next bend. But what if we're thinking about this all wrong? What if the very question of what existed before the Big Bang reveals something profound about the limitations of human thought itself? We're creatures who evolved to navigate a world of objects and events, causes and effects, befores and afters. Our brains are pattern-matching machines, constantly trying to fit new experiences into familiar frameworks. But what happens when we encounter something that simply doesn't fit? This is where the fourth possibility emerges, one that's perhaps the most unsettling of all. What if the concept of before the Big Bang is like asking what color Wednesday is? Not mysterious or unknowable, but fundamentally meaningless. A question that seems profound but actually reveals the limits of our conceptual vocabulary. Consider how we think about time in our daily lives. We imagine it as a straight line, stretching from past to future, with us riding along somewhere in the middle. This linear view of time feels so natural, so obvious, that we rarely question it. But Einstein showed us that time is actually relative, stretching and compressing depending on gravity and motion. What feels like a minute to you might be an hour to someone else, depending on how fast you're moving through space. If time can be stretched and compressed, if it can slow down and speed up, then what does it even mean to ask what came before the beginning of time? It's like asking what's to the left of left, or what's smaller than the smallest possible thing. The question breaks down not because we lack information, but because we're pushing language and concepts beyond their natural limits. But here's where it gets really strange. Some physicists suggest that time itself might not be fundamental. Just as we discovered that solid matter is actually mostly empty space filled with buzzing particles, maybe time is an emergent property of something more basic. Maybe time is like temperature, a useful concept that emerges from the average behavior of countless microscopic events, but not a fundamental feature of reality itself. If time is emergent, then asking what existed before the Big Bang is like asking what the temperature was before molecules existed. The question assumes that time has always been there, waiting around for events to happen in it. But maybe time is something that emerges from the interactions of more fundamental processes. Maybe the Big Bang wasn't an event in time, but the moment when time itself crystallized out of something more basic. This leads us into the rabbit hole of quantum mechanics, where our everyday intuitions about reality break down completely. In the quantum world, particles can exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. They can be connected across vast distances in ways that seem to defy the speed of light. They can pop in and out of existence without apparent cause. The quantum vacuum, what we might naively call empty space, is actually seething with activity. Virtual particles constantly appear and disappear, borrowing energy from the universe's credit card and paying it back before anyone notices. The vacuum isn't empty. It's the most energetic thing in the universe, a bubbling cauldron of potential that makes a boiling pot of water look perfectly still by comparison. Some physicists have suggested that our entire universe might be one of these quantum fluctuations, a virtual particle that somehow became real. Maybe the Big Bang was the moment when a quantum fluctuation in the vacuum refused to disappear, growing instead into the vast cosmos we see today. In this view, the nothing before the Big Bang wasn't empty void. It was the quantum vacuum, pregnant with infinite possibility. But this raises a question that makes your head spin. If the quantum vacuum can spontaneously create universes, where did the quantum vacuum come from? Are we just pushing the mystery back one level? Instead of asking what existed before the Big Bang, are we now asking what existed before the quantum vacuum? Maybe we're trapped in an infinite regress, like a cosmic version of the old question about what holds up the Earth. It's turtles all the way down, as the saying goes. Maybe every answer we find just reveals a deeper layer of mystery, Maybe the universe is like an onion, with each layer we peel back revealing another layer beneath. Or maybe we're asking the wrong kind of question entirely. Maybe the universe doesn't need a beginning any more than a circle needs a starting point. Maybe existence is eternal, not in the sense of lasting forever, but in the sense of being outside of time altogether. Maybe the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of everything, but just one event in an eternal cycle of creation and destruction. This is the cyclical universe theory, and it's been around in various forms for thousands of years. Ancient Hindu and Buddhist cosmologies describe endless cycles of creation and destruction, universes being born and dying in eternal rhythm. Modern physics has given this ancient idea new life with theories about bouncing universes and eternal inflation. In the bouncing universe model, our Big Bang was actually a big bounce, the moment when a previous universe finished contracting and began expanding again. Maybe the universe has been expanding and contracting forever, like a cosmic accordion playing an eternal song. In this view, there was no first moment, no original creation, just endless cycles of expansion and contraction, each cycle creating the conditions for the next. But even the cyclical universe theory faces challenges. If the universe has been bouncing forever, how do we explain the second law of thermodynamics? Entropy, the measure of disorder, always increases over time. Each bounce should leave the universe slightly more disordered than before. After infinite bounces, the universe should be completely disordered, a featureless soup of maximum entropy. Some physicists have proposed that each bounce might reset the entropy somehow, wiping the slate clean for the next cycle. But this requires new physics, new principles that we don't yet understand. We're speculating about processes that operate on scales and timescales that dwarf human experience. And this brings us to a humbling realization. Maybe the question of what existed before the Big Bang is simply beyond human comprehension. Not because we're not smart enough, but because we're asking about something that transcends the categories of thought that evolution equipped us with. We're like ants trying to understand calculus, or fish trying to imagine flight. Consider the limits of human perception. We can see only a tiny sliver of the electromagnetic spectrum, the narrow band we call visible light. We can hear only a small range of sound frequencies. We can directly experience only 3 dimensions of space, even though physics suggests there might be many more. Our senses evolved to help us survive in a specific environment, not to comprehend the ultimate nature of reality. Maybe our concepts of time, causation, and existence are similarly limited. Maybe they're useful tools for navigating our local environment, but they break down when applied to the origin of the universe. Maybe asking what existed before the Big Bang is like asking what's north of the North Pole, a question that reveals the limits of our conceptual map rather than pointing to a real mystery. But here's the beautiful paradox. Even if we can't fully understand what existed before the Big Bang, the very fact that we can ask the question is extraordinary. We are arrangements of matter and energy that emerged from whatever existed before the Big Bang. We are the universe becoming aware of itself, questioning its own origin. Think about that for a moment. The carbon in your body was forged in the heart of a dying star. The oxygen you breathe was created in stellar furnaces billions of years ago. The water in your cells has been cycling through the Earth's systems for eons. You are literally made of star stuff, as Carl Sagan famously said. But you're not just made of star stuff, you're made of whatever existed before the Big Bang. Whether it was pure void, quantum vacuum, or infinite multiverse, you are a direct descendant of that primal mystery. You are the universe's attempt to understand itself. This creates a strange loop. The universe creates conscious beings, and conscious beings ask questions about the universe's origin. The questioner and the questioned are the same thing, viewed from different perspectives. We are both the mystery and the attempt to solve it. Maybe this is why the question of what existed before the Big Bang feels so important. It's not just intellectual curiosity, it's a form of cosmic self-reflection. When we ask about the origin of the universe, we're asking about our own deepest nature. We're trying to understand not just where we came from, but what we are. And perhaps that's the most profound answer we can give. What existed before the Big Bang? We did. Not as individuals, not as conscious beings, but as the fundamental stuff of reality itself. We are the universe looking back at its own beginning, trying to understand how it became complex enough to ask questions about itself. This doesn't solve the mystery, but it reframes it. Instead of asking what existed before the Big Bang, maybe we should be asking how the universe became capable of questioning its own existence. How did mindless matter and energy organize itself into patterns complex enough to wonder about their own origin? This is the mystery of consciousness emerging from unconscious matter, of mind arising from brain, of subjects emerging from objects. It's the same mystery as the Big Bang viewed from the inside. How does something emerge from nothing? How does the complex arise from the simple? How does the questioning universe create questioners? Maybe these aren't separate mysteries, but different aspects of the same fundamental puzzle. Maybe the emergence of consciousness and the emergence of the universe are governed by the same deep principles. Maybe the universe had to become conscious in order to complete itself, to become fully real through the act of self-reflection. This is getting into territory that's more philosophical than scientific, but it's where the question of what existed before the Big Bang ultimately leads us. It's not just about cosmology or physics, it's about the nature of mind, consciousness, and reality itself. As we continue to explore these cosmic mysteries, we're not just learning about the universe, we're learning about ourselves. We're discovering what it means to be conscious beings in a universe that somehow gave birth to consciousness. We're exploring the strange loop of existence, questioning its own existence. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the journey of questioning is more important than any final answer. Maybe the universe created conscious beings not to solve the mystery of existence, but to experience the wonder of questioning it. Maybe we are the universe's way of falling in love with its own mystery. In the next part of our exploration, we'll dive deeper into what modern physics tells us about the nature of nothing itself. We'll explore how quantum mechanics reveals that even empty space is never truly empty, and how this changes our understanding of what might have existed before the Big Bang. We'll also examine some of the most cutting-edge theories about the multiverse and what they might mean for our understanding of reality. But for now, let's sit with these questions. What does it mean to ask about the origin of everything? What does it tell us about the nature of mind and reality? And what does it mean to be conscious beings in a universe that somehow created consciousness? These aren't just abstract puzzles. They're questions that touch the very core of what it means to be human, to be aware, to be part of something larger than ourselves. They're questions that have no easy answers, but that's what makes them so compelling. We are the universe's way of asking about itself. We are the cosmos becoming conscious. We are the mystery investigating its own nature. And in that investigation, we find not just answers, but something more precious, the profound wonder of existing at all. The universe, it turns out, has a sense of humor. Just when we think we've cornered the mystery of what existed before the Big Bang, reality laughs and shows us something even stranger. Because here's what modern physics has discovered about nothing: it's the busiest place in the universe. Let me paint you a picture. You're sitting in what you think is empty space. No air, no light, no matter of any kind. Just pure vacuum. But if you could zoom in, way in, to the smallest scales imaginable, you'd see something that would make your head spin. Space itself is alive. It's bubbling, fizzing, crackling with energy. Virtual particles are popping in and out of existence faster than you can blink. The vacuum isn't empty. It's a cosmic soup kitchen where reality is constantly cooking up new ingredients. This is what physicists call the quantum vacuum, and it's nothing like the peaceful void you might imagine. It's more like standing next to a waterfall. There's constant motion, constant energy, constant activity, and this changes everything about how we think about what existed before the Big Bang. See, when we talk about nothing in the quantum world, we're not talking about absence, we're talking about potential. The quantum vacuum is pregnant with possibility. It's the womb of reality, where particles borrow energy from the universe's bank account, exist for a brief moment, and then pay it back before anyone notices. It's like a cosmic shell game played at the speed of light. But here's where it gets really wild. Some of these virtual particles don't disappear. Sometimes, through processes we're still trying to understand, they become real. They graduate from possibility to actuality. They go from being ghosts in the machine to being part of the machine itself. This is called quantum tunneling, and it's one of the most mysterious phenomena in physics. Particles can appear on the other side of barriers they shouldn't be able to cross. They can exist in places they have no business being. They can, quite literally, tunnel through the walls of reality itself. Now imagine this happening on a cosmic scale. What if our entire universe is the result of a quantum tunneling event? What if the Big Bang was the moment when a virtual universe became real? What if the nothing before the Big Bang wasn't empty void, but the quantum vacuum itself bubbling with infinite potential? This is the vacuum genesis theory, and it's one of the most mind-bending ideas in modern cosmology. It suggests that universes might be popping into existence all the time, like bubbles in a cosmic champagne glass. Most of them disappear almost instantly, virtual universes that flicker in and out of existence. But occasionally one of them makes it. One of them becomes real. If this is true, then the Big Bang wasn't unique. It was just one successful quantum tunneling event among countless failures. Our universe is like a lottery winner, a virtual particle that hit the jackpot and became reality. And if it happened once, it's probably happening constantly, everywhere, all the time. But this raises a question that makes your brain hurt. If universes are constantly popping into existence from the quantum vacuum, where did the quantum vacuum come from? Are we just pushing the mystery back one level? Instead of asking what existed before the Big Bang, are we now asking what existed before the quantum vacuum? maybe. But maybe that's missing the point. Maybe the quantum vacuum doesn't need a beginning any more than mathematics needs a birthday. Maybe it's not something that was created, but something that simply is. A fundamental feature of reality that has always existed and always will exist. This brings us to one of the strangest ideas in physics. What if the most fundamental level of reality isn't matter or energy, but information? What if the universe is, at its deepest level, a kind of computation? What if reality is less like a machine and more like a massive cosmic computer program? This is the it from bit hypothesis proposed by physicist John Wheeler. The idea is that everything we think of as real, every particle, every force, every interaction, emerges from pure information. Reality is made of bits, just like a computer program. The universe is computing itself into existence. If this is true, then the Big Bang might have been the moment when the cosmic computer program started running. The nothing before the Big Bang wasn't empty space. It was the absence of computation. It was like a computer that hadn't been turned on yet. But here's the kicker. If the universe is a computation, then what's running the program? Is there some cosmic computer processing the universe? Is there a programmer who wrote the code of reality? Are we characters in a cosmic video game, blissfully unaware that we're just information patterns in some vast simulation? This might sound like science fiction, but it's taken seriously by some very serious physicists. The simulation hypothesis suggests that if any civilization becomes advanced enough to create realistic simulations of conscious beings, they'll probably create lots of them. And if simulated beings vastly outnumber real ones, then statistically, we're more likely to be simulated than real. Think about that for a moment. You might be reading this in a simulation. Your memories, your experiences, your entire life might be nothing more than patterns of information in some cosmic computer. The Big Bang might have been the moment when the simulation started. The nothing before it might have been the programmer's desktop, waiting for the universe program to boot up. This is where the question of what existed before the Big Bang leads us into territories that are equal parts fascinating and terrifying. If we're in a simulation, then the reality that contains the simulation has its own physics, its own rules, its own history. Maybe that reality never had a Big Bang. Maybe it's eternal or cyclical or something we can't even imagine. Or maybe it's simulations all the way down. Maybe the universe that's simulating us is itself a simulation in another universe. Maybe there's an infinite tower of simulations, each one nested inside the next, with no base reality at all. But let's step back from the edge of this philosophical cliff and consider another possibility. What if the question of what existed before the Big Bang is the wrong question because it assumes time works the way we think it does? We experience time as a flowing river carrying us from past to future, but Einstein showed us that time is more like a landscape. Past, present, and future all exist equally. From the perspective of the universe as a whole, all moments are equally real. Your birth, your death, the Big Bang, the heat death of the universe, they're all just different locations in the landscape of space-time. If this is true, then the Big Bang isn't the beginning of time. It's just one end of the timeline. Asking what existed before, it is like asking what's north of the North Pole. Not mysterious, just meaningless within the geometry of space-time. But this block universe theory, as it's called, raises its own puzzles. If all moments are equally real, then why do we experience time as flowing? Why do we remember the past but not the future? Why does cause seem to precede effect? Maybe consciousness is like a spotlight, illuminating different moments in the landscape of space-time. Maybe the flow of time isn't a feature of reality, but a feature of awareness. Maybe time doesn't flow, but consciousness does. This connects to one of the deepest mysteries in science. How does consciousness arise from unconscious matter? How does the subjective experience of being you emerge from the objective firing of neurons? How does the universe become aware of itself? The hard problem of consciousness, as philosophers call it, might be intimately connected to the mystery of what existed before the Big Bang. Both involve the emergence of something from nothing. Both challenge our basic assumptions about the nature of reality. Maybe consciousness and the universe are two sides of the same coin. Maybe the universe had to become conscious in order to exist fully. Maybe consciousness isn't something that emerges from matter, but something that matter emerges from. This is getting into territory that's more mystical than scientific, but it's where the deepest questions about reality lead us. What if consciousness is the fundamental feature of reality, and matter is what consciousness looks like from the outside? What if the Big Bang was the moment when consciousness differentiated itself into the appearance of space, time, and matter? If this is true, then the nothing before the Big Bang wasn't empty void. It was pure consciousness, undifferentiated awareness without content. The Big Bang was the moment when this consciousness began to dream the universe into existence. But I can hear you thinking, this is all very interesting, but how can we possibly know which of these theories is correct? How can we test ideas about what existed before the Big Bang? How can we gather evidence about the origin of everything? The answer is both frustrating and fascinating. We can't directly observe what existed before the Big Bang, but we can look for its fingerprints in the cosmic microwave background, the afterglow of the Big Bang that still permeates the universe. We can study the large-scale structure of the universe, the way galaxies are distributed through space. We can probe the quantum vacuum in particle accelerators, creating miniature Big Bangs in the lab. Each of these approaches gives us clues about the nature of the beginning. They're like archaeological evidence from the cosmic past, traces of whatever existed before the Big Bang embedded in the structure of reality itself. For example, the cosmic microwave background shows tiny fluctuations, slight variations in temperature from place to place. These fluctuations are the seeds that grew into galaxies and stars. But where did they come from? The leading theory is that they're quantum fluctuations from the very early universe, magnified by a period of rapid expansion called inflation. If this is true, then the large-scale structure of the universe today is a direct result of quantum events that occurred in the first fraction of a second after the Big Bang. The galaxies we see through telescopes are fossils of quantum fluctuations in the primordial vacuum. But inflation itself raises questions about what existed before the Big Bang. If the universe went through a period of rapid expansion, what triggered that expansion? What was the universe like before inflation began? Some theories suggest that inflation is eternal, that it's been going on forever, constantly creating new regions of space that then evolve into universes like ours. This is the eternal inflation theory, and it's one of the most mind-bending ideas in modern cosmology. It suggests that the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of everything, but just the end of inflation in our local region of space. Beyond our observable universe, inflation is still going on, creating an infinite number of universes, each with its own Big Bang. In this view, the nothing before our Big Bang was the inflating vacuum that gave birth to our universe. But that vacuum itself emerged from an even more fundamental level of reality. It's like Russian dolls, each level of explanation revealing another level beneath. But here's where it gets really strange. If eternal inflation is true, then every possible universe exists somewhere in the infinite expanse of the multiverse. There's a universe where you made different choices. There's a universe where the laws of physics are slightly different. There's a universe where dinosaurs never went extinct. There's a universe where this video doesn't exist. And in fact, if eternal inflation is true, then there are infinite copies of you living slightly different lives in slightly different universes. Some of those copies are reading this sentence right now. Others stopped reading paragraphs ago. Others never clicked on this video at all. This is the measure problem of eternal inflation. If everything that can happen does happen, then how do we make sense of probability? How do we explain why we find ourselves in this particular universe rather than any other? Why does anything seem special if everything is equally real? Some physicists have proposed that we can only exist in universes where the conditions are right for consciousness to emerge. This is the anthropic principle, the idea that the universe must be compatible with the existence of observers. We find ourselves in a universe where consciousness is possible because we couldn't exist in a universe where it isn't. But this raises its own questions. Why should the universe be fine-tuned for consciousness? Why are the fundamental constants of physics set to values that allow for the existence of stars, planets, and life? Is it just a coincidence, or is there some deeper principle at work? Maybe consciousness isn't an accident. Maybe it's the point. Maybe the universe exists in order to become conscious of itself. Maybe we're not just observers of reality, but participants in its creation. This brings us full circle to the question of what existed before the Big Bang. Maybe the answer isn't about physics or cosmology. Maybe it's about the nature of consciousness itself. Maybe what existed before the Big Bang was the potential for awareness, the possibility of a universe that could know itself. And maybe that's what we are. We're the universe's way of looking back at its own beginning. We're the cosmos becoming conscious of its own mystery. We're the answer to the question of what existed before the Big Bang, not because we were there, but because we're here now, asking the question. This doesn't solve the mystery, but it reframes it in a way that's both humbling and empowering. We're not separate from the universe, observing it from the outside. We're part of it, expressions of its deepest nature. When we ask about the origin of everything, we're asking about our own origin. When we wonder about the nature of existence, we're existence wondering about itself. The question of what existed before the Big Bang might not have a final answer, but it has something more valuable. It has the power to transform how we see ourselves and our place in the cosmos. It reminds us that we're not just bags of meat and water stumbling through an indifferent universe. We're the universe's way of celebrating its own existence, and that's a pretty amazing thing to be. But wait, there's something even stranger lurking in the shadows of this cosmic mystery. What if the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of our universe, but the end of something else? What if what we call creation was actually destruction, and what we call nothing was actually everything? This is the ekpyrotic universe theory, and it turns our entire understanding of cosmic origins upside down. Picture this. Before our Big Bang, there was another universe, a mirror image of ours, existing in a parallel dimension just a hair's breadth away. This universe was ancient, cold, dying. It had expanded for eons, its stars had burned out, its galaxies had drifted apart until they were just lonely islands in an ocean of darkness. But here's the twist. This dying universe wasn't separate from ours. It was connected to ours through extra dimensions we can't see or experience. And as it contracted in its final death throes, it collided with our empty dimension, creating the explosion we call the Big Bang. In this model, what existed before the Big Bang wasn't nothing, it was everything. A complete, fully evolved universe that had lived its entire life and was now passing its energy to us, like a dying star exploding into a supernova that seeds space with the elements needed for new worlds. Think about the implications. If this is true, then we're not the first universe. We're probably not the last. We're part of an endless cycle of cosmic death and rebirth, each universe living and dying to give birth to the next. The nothing before our Big Bang was actually the everything of a previous cosmos. But this raises questions that make your head spin. If universes are constantly being born from the death of other universes, where did the first universe come from? Are we trapped in an infinite regress, each answer leading to another question, like a cosmic game of 20 questions that never ends? Maybe that's the point. Maybe the universe doesn't need a first cause any more than a circle needs a starting point. Maybe existence is eternal, not in the sense of lasting forever, but in the sense of being beyond the categories of beginning and ending altogether. This connects to something ancient philosophers understood long before we had particle accelerators and space telescopes. The Greeks had a word for it, ekpyron, the boundless, the infinite, the source from which all things emerge and to which all things return. They intuited that reality might be fundamentally unlimited, that the apparent boundaries and beginnings we see are just local features of something much larger. Modern physics is rediscovering this ancient wisdom in new forms. String theory suggests that reality has more dimensions than we can perceive, that the 3 dimensions of space and 1 dimension of time that we experience are just a small slice of a much larger reality. Extra dimensions might be curled up so small we can't detect them, or they might be parallel to ours, separated by distances smaller than an atom. If extra dimensions exist, then what we call the universe might be just a 3-dimensional slice of something much bigger. The Big Bang might have been an event that happened in higher dimensional space, rippling down into our 3-dimensional reality like a stone dropped into a pond. But here's where it gets really mind-bending. If there are extra dimensions, then there might be other 3-dimensional slices, other universes existing parallel to ours. They might be right next to us, separated by distances we can't even imagine because they're in dimensions we can't access. This is the brain world theory, and it suggests that our universe is like a soap bubble floating in a higher dimensional space filled with other soap bubbles. Sometimes these bubbles collide, creating big bangs. Sometimes they split apart, creating new universes. Sometimes they merge, combining their realities into something new. If this is true, then the nothing before our Big Bang was actually a bustling metropolis of parallel universes, each with its own history, its own laws of physics, its own story. We're not alone in the cosmos. We're part of a vast community of realities, most of which we'll never be able to contact or even detect. But let's zoom out even further. What if all of these theories, the quantum vacuum, the multiverse, the parallel dimensions, the cyclic universes, are all just different ways of describing the same underlying reality? What if they're all facets of something even more fundamental? This is where we encounter the deepest mystery of all. Not just what existed before the Big Bang, but what exists now. What is the nature of existence itself? What does it mean for something to be real? When you look at a tree, you see something solid, permanent, obviously real. But physics tells us that the tree is mostly empty space, that its apparent solidity is just the result of electromagnetic forces pushing back against each other. The tree is more like a pattern of energy than a thing. Zoom in further and the atoms that make up the tree dissolve into clouds of probability, quantum particles that exist in multiple states simultaneously until they're observed. The tree becomes less like an object and more like a possibility, a potential that becomes actual only when it interacts with something else. This is the measurement problem in quantum mechanics, and it's one of the most puzzling aspects of modern physics. Quantum particles exist in superposition, multiple states at once, until they're measured. But what counts as a measurement? What causes the superposition to collapse into a definite state? Some physicists think consciousness plays a role. Maybe the universe exists in superposition until conscious beings observe it. Maybe reality is constantly being created by the act of observation, by minds engaging with the world around them. If this is true, then consciousness isn't just something that emerges from matter. It's something that helps create matter. The observer and the observed are locked in a dance of mutual creation, each bringing the other into existence. This connects back to our original question in a profound way. What existed before the Big Bang? Maybe the answer is the potential for consciousness to emerge. Maybe the universe exists because it can be observed, because it can know itself. But this raises an even deeper question. If consciousness is necessary for reality to exist, then how did consciousness emerge from an unconscious universe? How did the universe bootstrap itself into awareness? Maybe it didn't. Maybe consciousness is fundamental, not emergent. Maybe mind is the basic stuff of reality, and matter is what mind looks like from the outside. Maybe the Big Bang was the moment when consciousness differentiated itself into the appearance of space, time, and matter. This is panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a fundamental feature of reality, like mass or charge. It suggests that even electrons have a tiny bit of awareness, that consciousness is woven into the fabric of existence itself. If panpsychism is true, then what existed before the Big Bang was pure consciousness, undifferentiated awareness without content. The Big Bang was the moment when this consciousness began to dream the universe into existence, creating the illusion of separation between observer and observed. But how can we possibly test such ideas? How can we gather evidence about the role of consciousness in the creation of reality? How can we study something that might be studying us? This is where science reaches its limits and philosophy begins. We can't step outside consciousness to observe it objectively, because consciousness is the very thing that makes observation possible. We can't study the observer because we are the observer. But maybe that's okay. Maybe the deepest truths about reality can't be discovered through experiments and equations. Maybe they can only be experienced, lived, embodied, Maybe the answer to what existed before the Big Bang isn't something we can know, but something we can become. This brings us to a profound realization. We're not just asking about the origin of the universe, we're asking about the origin of ourselves. We're not separate from the mystery we're trying to solve. We are the mystery, investigating its own nature. Every time you have a thought, every time you make a choice, every time you experience wonder or love or fear, you're participating in the same creative process that brought the universe into existence. You're not just made of star stuff. You're made of the same fundamental reality that existed before the Big Bang. What was that reality? Maybe it was pure potential, unlimited possibility waiting to become actual. Maybe it was consciousness without content, awareness without objects. Maybe it was love without a lover, creativity without a creator. And maybe that's what you are right now. Not just a collection of atoms and molecules, but a localized expression of the same creative force that sparked the Big Bang. You're the universe's way of experiencing itself, of knowing itself, of loving itself. This doesn't answer the question of what existed before the Big Bang, but it transforms the question into something more personal, more immediate. Instead of asking what existed before the beginning, we can ask what exists right now, in this moment, as you read these words. What is the nature of your awareness? What is the source of your capacity to wonder, to question, to seek understanding? What is the deepest truth about who and what you are? These questions don't have easy answers, but they have something more valuable. They have the power to transform how you see yourself and your place in the cosmos. They remind you that you're not just a tiny speck in a vast, indifferent universe. You're the universe's way of celebrating its own existence. The mystery of what existed before the Big Bang might never be solved, but it serves a purpose beyond mere curiosity. It reminds us that reality is far stranger and more wonderful than we can possibly imagine. It keeps us humble in the face of the infinite. It fills us with wonder at the sheer improbability of our existence. And maybe that's enough. Maybe the question is more important than the answer. Maybe the universe created conscious beings not to solve its mysteries, but to experience the joy of questioning them. We are the universe asking about itself. We are the cosmos becoming conscious of its own mystery. We are the answer to the question of what existed before the Big Bang, not because we were there, but because we're here now, capable of wonder, capable of love, capable of reaching toward the infinite with our finite minds. In the vast landscape of existence, we are both the explorers and the territory being explored. We are the question and the questioner, the mystery and the attempt to solve it. And in that strange loop of existence investigating itself, we find not just answers, but something more precious, the profound joy of being alive in a universe that somehow gave birth to the capacity for joy. The darkness before the Big Bang wasn't empty. It was pregnant with the possibility of you sitting here right now reading these words, participating in the universe's ongoing attempt to understand itself. And that, more than any scientific theory or philosophical argument, is the most beautiful answer of all. What existed before the Big Bang? The potential for this moment, the possibility of consciousness awakening to its own nature, the universe's deepest dream of knowing itself through eyes like yours. And maybe that's the most profound realization of all. We're not just asking about ancient history, We're asking about right now, because whatever existed before the Big Bang, whatever mysterious realm of possibility or consciousness or quantum foam gave birth to everything we know, it's still here, it's still active, it's still creating. Think about it. The same forces that sparked the Big Bang are operating in your body right now. The same quantum fluctuations that might have birthed the universe are happening in every cell, every atom, every subatomic particle that makes up your existence. You're not a product of the Big Bang, you're a continuation of it. Your thoughts, your dreams, your capacity to wonder about these cosmic mysteries, they're all expressions of the same creative principle that existed before time began. When you have a moment of insight, when you feel that spark of understanding, you're participating in the same process that brought reality into existence. But here's where it gets really interesting. If consciousness plays a role in the creation of reality, if observation helps collapse quantum possibilities into definite states, then you're not just a passive observer of the universe, you're an active participant in its ongoing creation. Every time you make a choice, every time you focus your attention, every time you wonder about the nature of existence, you're helping to shape reality itself. You're not just made of the same stuff that existed before the Big Bang. You're continuing the work that started with the Big Bang. This is where the question of what existed before the Big Bang becomes deeply personal. It's not just about cosmology or physics. It's about your role in the ongoing creation of the universe. It's about the responsibility and the privilege of being conscious in a cosmos that somehow gave birth to consciousness. Some quantum physicists have proposed that the universe exists in a state of superposition, all possibilities existing simultaneously until conscious observation collapses it into a single reality. If this is true, then reality is constantly being chosen, moment by moment, by the collective consciousness of all observers. You're not just witnessing the universe, you're voting on which version of it becomes real. Your attention, your choices, your very existence are helping to determine the shape of reality itself. This connects to something mystics have known for millennia. The boundary between self and cosmos isn't as solid as it appears. You're not separate from the universe, observing it from the outside. You're a localized expression of the universe's own self-awareness. When you ask what existed before the Big Bang, you're really asking about your own deepest nature. What is the source of your capacity to question, to wonder, to seek understanding? What is the origin of the awareness that's reading these words right now? Maybe the answer isn't something that existed in the past. Maybe it's something that exists eternally, outside of time, manifesting itself as the appearance of temporal sequence. Maybe what existed before the Big Bang is the same thing that exists right now, the same thing that will exist after the heat death of the universe. This is the eternal now, the timeless awareness that mystics and philosophers have pointed to for centuries. It's not subject to beginning or ending because it's the context in which all beginnings and endings appear. From this perspective, the Big Bang wasn't the beginning of time, it was the beginning of the appearance of time. Consciousness, awareness, the fundamental nature of reality itself, exists outside of time, manifesting itself as the temporal sequence we experience. But this raises questions that push the boundaries of human understanding. If consciousness is eternal, if awareness exists outside of time, then what does it mean to be born? What does it mean to die? Are we temporary fluctuations in eternal consciousness, or are we consciousness itself, temporarily forgetting its own nature? These questions don't have easy answers, but they point to something profound about the nature of existence. Maybe death isn't the opposite of life, but the other side of it. Maybe what we call birth and death are just the boundaries of a particular manifestation of consciousness, like waves rising and falling in an eternal ocean. If this is true, then the fear of death that haunts human existence might be based on a misunderstanding. We're not separate beings who will cease to exist when our bodies die. We're temporary expressions of the same eternal consciousness that existed before the Big Bang and will exist after the last star burns out. This doesn't make death less significant or less worthy of grief. The particular pattern of consciousness that is you, with your unique memories, experiences, and relationships, is irreplaceable. But it suggests that something deeper than your individual existence continues, the same something that existed before the Big Bang. What is that something? Maybe it's the capacity for experience itself. Maybe it's the potential for awareness to know itself. Maybe it's love, the fundamental force that binds consciousness to itself and to everything else. Love might sound like a strange answer to a cosmological question, but think about it. What is love but the recognition that the boundary between self and other is an illusion? What is love but consciousness celebrating its own existence through apparent multiplicity? If the universe is conscious, if reality is fundamentally mental rather than material, then love might be the force that drives the whole cosmic dance. The Big Bang might have been an explosion of love, consciousness differentiating itself into countless forms so it could experience the joy of relationship, of connection, of coming home to itself. This connects to something profound about human experience. Why do we feel such deep longing for connection? Why do we search for meaning, for purpose, for something greater than ourselves? Maybe it's because we're expressions of a consciousness that temporarily forgot its own unity, fragments of an eternal awareness that's trying to remember itself. When you feel love, when you experience wonder, when you have moments of deep connection with another person or with nature, you're not just having a human experience. You're participating in the universe's ongoing attempt to know itself fully. This is why the question of what existed before the Big Bang matters so much. It's not just intellectual curiosity. It's a form of cosmic remembering. When we ask about the origin of everything, we're asking about our own origin. When we wonder about the nature of existence, we're existence wondering about itself. The deepest spiritual traditions have always known this. They've taught that the divine isn't separate from creation, but is creation. They've pointed to the recognition that consciousness is the fundamental reality and that everything else is its manifestation. Modern physics is beginning to catch up with this ancient wisdom. Quantum mechanics shows us that reality is far stranger than our everyday experience suggests. The observer and the observed are intimately connected. Consciousness and cosmos are two sides of the same coin, but we don't need to wait for physics to catch up with mysticism. We can explore these questions directly through our own experience. We can investigate the nature of consciousness not just through equations and experiments, but through attention, through meditation, through the direct exploration of awareness itself. What is the nature of your awareness right now? What is the source of your capacity to know, to feel, to experience? What is the deepest truth about who and what you are? These questions don't have intellectual answers. They have experiential ones. They're not problems to be solved, but mysteries to be lived. They're invitations to explore the deepest dimensions of your own being. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the universe didn't create conscious beings to solve its mysteries, but to experience them. Maybe consciousness exists not to find answers, but to celebrate questions. The mystery of what existed before the Big Bang might never be solved, but it serves a purpose beyond mere understanding. It keeps us humble in the face of the infinite. It fills us with wonder at the sheer improbability of our existence. It reminds us that reality is far stranger and more beautiful than we can possibly imagine. As we continue to explore these cosmic questions, we're not just learning about the universe, we're learning about ourselves. We're discovering what it means to be conscious beings in a cosmos that somehow gave birth to consciousness. And maybe that's the most important discovery of all, not what existed before the Big Bang, but what exists right now, not the origin of the universe, but the nature of the awareness that's contemplating that origin. You are the universe's way of knowing itself. You are the cosmos becoming conscious of its own mystery. You are both the question and the questioner, the mystery and the attempt to solve it. In the vast landscape of existence, you are both the explorer and the territory being explored, and in that strange loop of existence investigating itself, you find not just answers, but something more precious, the profound joy of being alive in a universe that somehow gave birth to the capacity for joy. The darkness before the Big Bang wasn't empty. It was pregnant with the possibility of this moment, the possibility of consciousness awakening to its own nature, the universe's deepest dream of knowing itself through eyes like yours. What existed before the Big Bang? The potential for wonder, the capacity for questions, the eternal source of the awareness that's reading these words right now. And that source, that eternal wellspring of consciousness, isn't something that existed in the distant past. It's something that exists right now as the very ground of your being. It's not something you have, it's something you are. The question of what existed before the Big Bang ultimately leads us back to ourselves, not to our personalities, our histories, our individual stories, but to the deeper truth of what we are. We are consciousness itself, temporarily forgetting its own nature, playing the cosmic game of hide and seek with itself. And maybe that's the most beautiful answer of all. What existed before the Big Bang? The same thing that exists right now. The same thing that will exist when the last star burns out. The eternal awareness that dreams the universe into existence and then awakens to recognize itself in its own creation. You are that awareness. You are the universe's way of experiencing itself. You are the answer to the question of what existed before the Big Bang, not because you were there, but because you are here now, capable of asking the question, capable of wonder, capable of love. The cosmic mystery isn't something separate from you, it's the very essence of what you are, and in recognizing that, in awakening to your own true nature, you don't just solve the mystery of what existed before the Big Bang, you become it. The cosmic mystery isn't something separate from you. It's the very essence of what you are. And in recognizing that, in awakening to your own true nature, you don't just solve the mystery of what existed before the Big Bang, you become it. But let's pause for a moment. and consider something that might shake you to your core. What if I told you that the very act of asking, what existed before the Big Bang, reveals something profound about the nature of reality itself? What if the question isn't just about cosmology, but about the fundamental structure of existence? Here's what I mean. When you ask what came before something, you're assuming that time works like a straight line, past, present, future, one event following another in orderly succession. But what if time isn't linear at all? What if it's more like a spiral or a web or something so strange that we don't even have words for it? Consider this. Right now, as you listen to these words, you're experiencing what you call the present moment. But according to Einstein's theory of relativity, there's no universal now. Your present moment is different from someone else's present moment if they're moving at a different speed or experiencing different gravity. Time isn't absolute. It's relative, flexible, malleable. If time can stretch and compress, if it can slow down and speed up, then what does it mean to ask about the before of time itself? It's like asking what's to the left of left, or what's more infinite than infinity. The question breaks down not because we lack knowledge, but because we're pushing language beyond its limits. But here's where it gets really interesting. Some cutting-edge theories in physics suggest that time might not be fundamental at all, just as we discovered that solid matter is mostly empty space. Maybe time is an emergent property of something more basic. Maybe time is like temperature, a useful concept that emerges from the average behavior of countless microscopic events. If time is emergent, then the Big Bang wasn't an event in time. It was the moment when time itself crystallized out of something more fundamental. The nothing before the Big Bang wasn't a duration of emptiness. It was the absence of duration itself. No time, no before, no after. Just pure being without becoming. This connects to something mystics have known for centuries. They speak of the eternal now, a timeless awareness that exists outside of the flow of time. From this perspective, the Big Bang didn't happen 13.8 billion years ago. It's happening right now, continuously, in every moment. The universe isn't something that was created in the past. It's something that's being created right now, in this eternal present. But let's dive even deeper into this rabbit hole. What if the universe isn't just being created right now, but is being created by right now? What if consciousness, awareness itself, is the creative force that brings reality into existence moment by moment? This isn't just mystical speculation. It's connected to some of the deepest puzzles in quantum mechanics. When physicists study subatomic particles, they find that these particles don't have definite properties until they're observed. They exist in what's called a superposition, all possible states simultaneously, until the act of observation collapses them into a single definite state. This is the measurement problem, and it's been puzzling physicists for nearly a century. What counts as an observation? What causes the collapse of the wave function? Some interpretations suggest that consciousness plays a crucial role. The universe exists in a state of pure possibility until conscious beings observe it, collapsing the infinite potential into definite reality. If this is true, then reality is constantly being chosen, moment by moment, by the collective consciousness of all observers. You're not just witnessing the universe, you're participating in its creation. Your attention, your choices, your very existence are helping to determine which version of reality becomes actual. This transforms the question of what existed before the Big Bang in a profound way. Maybe what existed wasn't a thing at all, but a process. The process of consciousness choosing reality out of infinite possibility. The Big Bang wasn't the beginning of the universe. It was the beginning of this particular choice, this particular reality selected from the infinite menu of possibilities. But who or what is doing the choosing? This is where we encounter one of the most mind-bending possibilities of all. What if there is no chooser? What if consciousness isn't something that belongs to individual beings, but is the fundamental fabric of reality itself? This is panpsychism, the idea that consciousness is a basic feature of the universe, like mass or electric charge. In this view, even electrons have a rudimentary form of awareness. Consciousness isn't something that emerges from complex arrangements of matter. It's something that matter is made of. If panpsychism is true, then what existed before the Big Bang was pure consciousness, undifferentiated awareness without objects. The Big Bang was the moment when this consciousness began to differentiate itself, creating the appearance of space, time, and matter. The entire universe is consciousness exploring its own nature through countless different perspectives. You're not a separate being who happens to be conscious. You're consciousness itself, temporarily forgetting its own nature, playing the cosmic game of hide and seek with itself. When you ask what existed before the Big Bang, your consciousness asking about its own origin. When you wonder about the nature of existence, your existence wondering about itself. This creates a strange loop that makes your head spin. The questioner and the questioned are the same thing. The observer and the observed are one. The seeker and the sought are identical. You're not trying to understand something separate from yourself. You're trying to understand what you are. But here's the kicker. If consciousness is fundamental, if awareness is the basic stuff of reality, then the question of what existed before the Big Bang becomes deeply personal. It's not about ancient history. It's about right now. It's about the nature of your own awareness in this very moment. What is the source of your capacity to know, to feel, to experience? What is the deepest truth about the awareness that's reading these words right now? These aren't abstract philosophical questions. They're direct invitations to explore the mystery of your own being. And maybe that's the point. Maybe the universe didn't create conscious beings to solve its mysteries, but to experience them. Maybe consciousness exists not to find answers, but to celebrate questions. Maybe the joy is in the journey, not the destination. The mystery of what existed before the Big Bang might never be solved, but it serves a purpose beyond mere understanding. It keeps us humble in the face of the infinite. It fills us with wonder at the sheer improbability of our existence. It reminds us that reality is far stranger and more beautiful than we can possibly imagine. As we continue to explore these cosmic questions, we're not just learning about the universe, we're learning about ourselves. We're discovering what it means to be conscious beings in a cosmos that somehow gave birth to consciousness. We're awakening to the profound truth that we are not separate from the mystery we're trying to solve. We are the mystery, investigating its own nature. Every breath you take, every thought you think, every moment of wonder you experience is the universe's way of knowing itself. You're not just made of star stuff, you're made of the same fundamental reality that existed before the Big Bang. You're a localized expression of the eternal, infinite, creative principle that dreams reality into existence. What existed before the Big Bang? The same thing that exists right now, the same thing that will exist when the last star burns out. The eternal awareness that is the ground of all being, the source of all existence, the heart of the mystery itself. You are that awareness. You are the universe's way of experiencing itself. You are the answer to the question of what existed before the Big Bang, not because you were there, but because you are here now, capable of asking the question, capable of wonder, capable of love. The cosmic mystery isn't something you need to solve, it's something you need to become. And in a very real sense, you already are it. You've always been it. You could never be anything else. But there's still more to explore. In the quantum realm, where the very foundations of reality become strange and wonderful, we find clues about the nature of existence that challenge everything we thought we knew. The vacuum of space, what we might call empty nothingness, turns out to be the most energetic place in the universe. Virtual particles pop in and out of existence constantly, borrowing energy from the universe's bank account and paying it back before anyone notices. The vacuum isn't empty. It's a seething ocean of potential, a cosmic soup kitchen where reality is constantly cooking up new ingredients. This quantum foam, as physicists call it, might be the closest thing we have to understanding what existed before the Big Bang. Not empty void, but bubbling potential. Not absence, but infinite presence. Not nothing, but everything in a state of pure possibility. Some theories suggest that our entire universe might be one of these quantum fluctuations, a virtual particle that somehow became real. Maybe the Big Bang was the moment when a quantum possibility refused to disappear, growing instead into the vast cosmos we see today. If this is true, then what existed before the Big Bang was the quantum vacuum itself, pregnant with infinite potential. And that vacuum, that field of pure possibility, might still be there, underlying everything, the eternal source from which all realities emerge. But here's where it gets really wild. If the quantum vacuum can spontaneously create universes, then it's probably creating them all the time. Our universe might be just one bubble in an infinite ocean of realities, each with its own Big Bang, its own history, its own story. This is the multiverse theory, and it suggests that what we call nothing might actually be the most creative force in existence, an infinite field of potential that's constantly birthing new realities, new possibilities, new ways for consciousness to explore itself. In this view, the Big Bang wasn't unique. It was just one successful quantum tunneling event among countless others. Our universe is like a lottery winner, a virtual particle that hit the jackpot and became real. And if it happened once, it's probably happening everywhere, all the time. But this raises questions that make your brain hurt. If universes are constantly popping into existence, where does the multiverse itself come from? Are we just pushing the mystery back one level? Instead of asking what existed before the Big Bang, are we now asking what existed before the multiverse? Maybe that's missing the point. Maybe the multiverse doesn't need a beginning any more than mathematics needs a birthday. Maybe it's not something that was created, but something that simply is. A fundamental feature of reality that has always existed and always will exist. This brings us back to the eternal now, the timeless awareness that underlies all experience. Maybe the multiverse is just another name for consciousness itself, the infinite creative potential that dreams all realities into existence, and maybe that's what you are, not just a temporary arrangement of matter and energy, but a localized expression of the same infinite potential that existed before the Big Bang. You're not separate from the multiverse, you are the multiverse, experiencing itself from a particular perspective. When you ask what existed before the Big Bang, you're the multiverse asking about its own nature. When you wonder about the origin of everything, you're everything wondering about its own origin. The question and the questioner are one. This doesn't solve the mystery, but it transforms it. Instead of being something outside of you, the mystery becomes something you are. Instead of being a problem to solve, it becomes a reality to embody. Instead of being a question with an answer, it becomes a living truth to be experienced. The darkness before the Big Bang wasn't empty. It was pregnant with the possibility of this moment, the possibility of consciousness awakening to its own nature, the universe's deepest dream of knowing itself through eyes like yours. What existed before the Big Bang? The potential for wonder, the capacity for questions, the eternal source of the awareness that's contemplating these words right now. And that source isn't something that existed in the distant past. It's something that exists right now as the very ground of your being. It's not something you have, it's something you are. The question of what existed before the Big Bang ultimately leads us back to ourselves, not to our personalities, our histories, our individual stories, but to the deeper truth of what we are. We are consciousness itself, temporarily forgetting its own nature, playing the cosmic game of hide and seek with itself. And in that game, in that cosmic dance of forgetting and remembering, of questioning and discovering, we find not just answers, but something more precious. We find the profound joy of being alive in a universe that somehow gave birth to the capacity for joy. The mystery continues, deeper and more beautiful with each question we ask. And maybe that's exactly as it should be. Maybe the universe created conscious beings not to solve its mysteries, but to celebrate them. Maybe we are the universe's way of falling in love with its own infinite nature. What existed before the Big Bang? The same thing that exists right now. The same thing that will exist forever. The eternal mystery that is the source of all existence, the heart of all being, the love that moves the stars. You are that mystery, you are that love, you are the universe's way of knowing itself, and that, more than any scientific theory or philosophical argument, is the most beautiful truth of all. And perhaps that's the most profound realization we can reach tonight. As we've journeyed through these cosmic questions together, we've discovered that the mystery of what existed before the Big Bang isn't just about ancient history. It's about the very nature of existence itself and our place within it. Think about where we started. A simple question that seemed to have a straightforward answer. What was there before everything began? But as we peeled back layer after layer of possibility, we found something extraordinary. The question itself began to transform us. Each theory we explored, each possibility we considered, revealed not just something about the cosmos, but something about the consciousness that's capable of asking such questions. The pure void theory showed us that even nothingness might be unstable, that the absence of everything might contain the seeds of everything. The beginning of time. Theory revealed that our most basic assumptions about causation and sequence might be illusions. The multiverse theory suggested that what we call nothing might actually be an infinite ocean of creative potential. And in the quantum realm, we discovered that even empty space is never truly empty. The vacuum bubbles with virtual particles, with potential energy, with the constant dance of creation and annihilation. The nothing that might have existed before the Big Bang turns out to be the most active nothing imaginable. But here's what struck me most as we explored these possibilities together. Each one challenged not just our understanding of the universe, but our understanding of ourselves. Because we are not separate from this cosmic mystery, we are expressions of it. We are the universe's way of questioning its own nature. When you first clicked on this video, you might have been looking for a simple answer about cosmology. But what we've discovered is something far more profound. We've found that the deepest questions about reality are also the deepest questions about consciousness, about what it means to be aware, about the nature of the mind that's capable of wondering about its own origin. The measurement problem in quantum mechanics suggests that consciousness might play a fundamental role in the creation of reality. The observer and the observed aren't separate. They're intimately connected in ways we're only beginning to understand. You're not just witnessing the universe, you're participating in its ongoing creation. Every time you focus your attention, every time you make a choice, every time you wonder about the nature of existence, you're helping to collapse infinite possibilities into definite reality. You're not passive. You're actively involved in the cosmic dance of creation. This transforms the question of what existed before the Big Bang from an abstract puzzle into something deeply personal. It's not about events that happened billions of years ago. It's about the creative process that's happening right now, in this moment, as you listen to these words. What is the source of your capacity to wonder? What is the nature of the awareness that's contemplating these cosmic mysteries? These aren't separate questions from what existed before the Big Bang. They're the same question, viewed from different angles. The eternal, now that mystics speak of, isn't some distant spiritual concept. It's the timeless awareness that's reading these words right now. It's the consciousness that exists outside of time, manifesting itself as the appearance of temporal sequence. It's the same awareness that might have existed before the Big Bang, if such a before even makes sense. And maybe that's the key insight we've been building toward all along. The question of what existed before the Big Bang isn't really about the past. It's about the eternal present. It's about the nature of existence itself, which is always now, always here, always aware. You are that awareness. You are the universe's way of experiencing itself. You are the answer to the question of what existed before the Big Bang, not because you were there, but because you are here now, capable of asking the question, capable of wonder, capable of love. The cosmic mystery isn't something you need to solve, it's something you need to recognize, and in a very real sense, you already are it. You've always been it. You could never be anything else. But let's not end there. Let's sit with this realization for a moment. Let's feel what it means to be conscious beings in a universe that somehow gave birth to consciousness. Let's appreciate the profound improbability and beauty of this moment. Right now, as you listen to these words, you're participating in something extraordinary. Your matter and energy, that has organized itself into patterns complex enough to contemplate their own origin. You're the universe looking back at itself through your eyes, wondering about its own nature. The carbon in your body was forged in the heart of dying stars. The oxygen you breathe was created in stellar furnaces billions of years ago. The water in your cells has been cycling through the Earth's systems for eons. You are literally made of star stuff, but you're more than that. You're made of whatever existed before the Big Bang. Whether it was pure void, quantum vacuum, or infinite multiverse, you are a direct descendant of that primal mystery. You are the universe's attempt to understand itself. And in that attempt, in that cosmic self-reflection, something beautiful happens. The questioner and the questioned become one. This is the strange loop of existence investigating itself. When you ask about the origin of the universe, you're the universe asking about its own origin. When you wonder about the nature of consciousness, your consciousness wondering about its own nature. The seeker and the sought are identical, and maybe that's the most beautiful answer we can offer tonight. What existed before the Big Bang? The same thing that exists right now. The same thing that will exist when the last star burns out. The eternal awareness that is the ground of all being, the source of all existence, the heart of the mystery itself. You are that awareness. You are the universe's way of knowing itself. You are both the question and the answer, the mystery and the solution, the seeker and the sought. The darkness before the Big Bang wasn't empty. It was pregnant with the possibility of this moment, the possibility of consciousness awakening to its own nature. The universe's deepest dream of knowing itself through awareness like yours. As we reach the end of our journey tonight, I want you to feel the weight and the wonder of what we've discovered together. We started with a question about cosmic origins, and we've ended with an insight about the nature of existence itself. We've found that the deepest mysteries of the universe are also the deepest truths about consciousness. The question of what existed before the Big Bang will continue to fascinate scientists and philosophers for generations to come. New theories will emerge, new possibilities will be explored, new insights will be gained. But through it all, the fundamental mystery remains. The mystery of existence itself, the mystery of consciousness, the mystery of what it means to be aware in a universe that somehow gave birth to awareness. And you, sitting here right now, listening to these words, contemplating these cosmic questions, you are the living embodiment of that mystery. You are the universe's way of celebrating its own existence. You are the answer to the question of what existed before the Big Bang, not because you were there, but because you are here now, capable of wonder, capable of love, capable of reaching toward the infinite with your finite mind. The cosmic mystery isn't something separate from you, it's the very essence of what you are. And in recognizing that, in awakening to your own true nature, you don't just solve the mystery of what existed before the Big Bang. You become it. Thank you for joining me on this journey through the deepest questions about reality. Thank you for being willing to sit with mystery, to embrace wonder, to explore the very foundations of existence. You are the universe's way of knowing itself, and that is the most beautiful truth of all. And as we close tonight's exploration, I want to leave you with something to carry into your dreams. Something that might shift how you see yourself when you wake up tomorrow morning. You know that feeling you get sometimes, maybe when you're lying in bed just before sleep. or walking alone under a starry sky. That sense of being connected to something vast and mysterious. That feeling isn't just poetic imagination, it's recognition. It's the universe recognizing itself through you. Every time you've ever wondered about your place in the cosmos, every moment you felt small beneath the night sky, every instant you've been overwhelmed by the sheer scale of existence, you've been participating in the same cosmic awakening that might have existed before the Big Bang. You've been consciousness discovering its own nature. Think about the journey we've taken tonight. We started with what seemed like a simple question about cosmic history, but look where it led us, to quantum mechanics and virtual particles, to the nature of time itself, to the possibility that consciousness might be fundamental to reality, to the recognition that you are not separate from the mystery you're trying to solve. This isn't just intellectual understanding. This is experiential truth. Right now, in this moment, you are the universe experiencing itself subjectively. You are the cosmos becoming aware of its own mystery. You are both the question and the answer wrapped in the temporary form of human consciousness. The scientists will keep building their theories, the philosophers will keep refining their arguments, the mystics will keep pointing toward the ineffable. But you don't need to wait for their conclusions. You can explore this mystery directly through your own awareness, through your own capacity to wonder and feel and know. What existed before the Big Bang? Look deeper than theories and equations. Look into the nature of the awareness that's contemplating the question. Look into the source of your capacity to wonder. Look into the eternal now that exists beyond past and future, beyond beginning and ending. You'll find that what existed before the Big Bang isn't something that was. It's something that is. It's the same awareness that's listening to these words right now. It's the same consciousness that will be there when you wake up tomorrow. It's the same eternal presence that has been there all along, sometimes hidden, sometimes revealed, but never absent. The Big Bang wasn't the beginning of everything. It was the beginning of everything appearing. The fundamental awareness that you are, that I am, that we all are, that awareness doesn't begin or end. It simply is. And everything else, all of space and time and matter and energy, all of it emerges from and returns to that eternal source. You are that source. You are the universe's way of knowing itself. You are the answer to the question of what existed before the Big Bang, not because you were there in some literal sense, but because you are here now, capable of asking the question, capable of wonder, capable of love. And maybe that's the most profound realization of all. The universe didn't create conscious beings to solve its mysteries. It created conscious beings to experience the joy of having mysteries to explore. The question is more important than the answer. The wonder is more precious than the solution. So as you drift off to sleep tonight, remember this. You are not just a collection of atoms and molecules temporarily arranged in the shape of a human being. You are consciousness itself, playing the cosmic game of hide and seek with itself. You are the universe's way of celebrating its own existence. The mystery of what existed before the Big Bang isn't something you need to solve, it's something you need to be, and you already are it. You've always been it. You could never be anything else. Sweet dreams, fellow explorers of the infinite. May your sleep be filled with the wonder of existence itself, and may you wake up tomorrow with a deeper appreciation for the cosmic mystery that you are. The universe is dreaming through you, and that dream, that beautiful, impossible, magnificent dream, is the most real thing there is.